They finally caught me. I'm 22 years old and I'm facing a life sentence. Now, I will never compartmentalize and say just because I was robbing drug dealers that it was some type of like Robin Hood thing or dirtbag on dirtbag crime. It was pathetic, you know. I had every opportunity to do right, but I chose wrong. I won't blame anybody else. These weren't mistakes, these were decisions. So I went on the run because I knew they were looking for me for robbing the drug dealer. I kicked in the door. It was a setup. I got away, but how far are you going to run when you're 22 years old with no money? What, are you going to keep robbing drug dealers till you get a 401k? Yeah. So I remember we're in Broward County. I get pulled over. I had it all though, fake IDs, everything. They pull me over. I give them a fake ID. They immediately know it's full of shit. They bring the little fingerprinter thing in and take me to jail for the warrant. But since my crimes happened in Palm Beach, I would have to wait. I'd have to go to the jail until they pick me up, make sure I had no holds and all that good shit, right? Annoying as fuck. I hated Broward County Jail. One, it was an hour away from where I lived. And two, it was just so brutal. I went there for a year for the juvenile prison boot camp over there, the youth offender. And they used to beat the shit out of us when we were just kids. I mean, they ended up killing a kid in there and they shut it down. Boot camp prison for the youth offenders, it isn't like military Marine boot camp. Yeah, they want to, build you up after breaking you down and teach you all the stuff you can go through. This was punishment. They want to see you suffer. It's a punishment. So they would beat the shit out of us. And, it did help me, though, learn about adversity and what I can endure. And I remember the officers would mock us. We'd be lifting up our lockers and shit. They say, we're turning you guys into super criminals, faster, stronger, smarter. And holding up the lockers over our head, they say, pretend it's a TV next time you break into a house. However, I endured, got out of there in a year and did it, came home. I spent pretty much all my teenage years, 17, 18, and 19, gone. And I finally finished the bid in the prison boot camp. So arriving to Broward County, the same county I did the youth offender boot camp in, I seen the officers, AKA drill instructors, some that had killed that kid, some that beat my ass. And they told me something I'll never forget. Hey, we thought you were one of the ones that were going to make it and do something amazing. I said, I appreciate that, but life happens, right? He said, boy, you're 22 years old. What the fuck do you know about life? With that same drill instructor, mindset. So I go back to the cell and I'm walking there and one of the DIs are walking with me and he's telling the other officers, I raised this young man since he was 16. He came in the system. And, that's when it hit me, man. Like, damn, I've spent more time in lockup than I have on the outside when all this is over. I have to manifest a different plan. But at the same time, I was young, naive, filled with hatred. I loved that I hate. Testosterone, anger, rage, and I didn't even know where it was coming from. And I told myself I'll never be a victim. I've seen too many dudes just too scared to defend themselves because they think they're going to go home. You could never go home if you're a coward and you get abused in the worst way. You're out there robbing, beating people up, and then you come in here and get violated in the worst way and think you're going to go home the same person? Fuck that. I'd rather go home never as a warrior and ever go home fast as a coward. That might not make sense to everybody, but it does to me. So anyway, as I get to the cell, I start to do my time and just get used to where I'm at. I'm just thinking I'm going to get a transfer in a few weeks and head back to Palm Beach and start, fighting my case and take my time and do whatever they give me in prison. I'm thinking I'm going to do 14 years. So I get a letter in the mail and it's from somebody very close that I grew up with. And he says, hey, Viking, man, you'll never believe it. My son, John Prince Park, a park that we were very familiar with. His son used to go there and play. And a chomo piece of shit was putting cameras in the kiddie bathrooms. Yeah. And thousands of victims potentially. And his son was on the list that could be victim. They weren't for sure because there's so much that was missing, but they know for sure that he was there around the same time those cameras were there. So now he also writes me and says, hey, I want you to reach out to a mutual friend named Carlos. So I say, all right, cool. I read it and he gives me like a couple words in there that would confirm basically how real this is and that 100% I'm talking to the right person. So I go up to Carlos. Dude's got a heavy Spanish accent. You know, he's a Latin king. He sounds like he's straight from Cuba, like just very, very culturized. You know what I mean? He said, "Hey man, what's up?" Like Tony Montana. Like, "Yo, what's up, man?" And, obviously my impressions are horrible, but you guys know what Scarface sound like. And real cool dude, not on any bullshit, stealing. And he said, "Listen, I talked to your boy and, we're mutual friends and we used to work together." He gives me the whole rundown. And he's telling me that the dude who was putting the bathroom cameras all around there is coming in that unit. I said, "No shit." He said, "Yeah, I already talked to the officer and the trustees in the county jail. Unlike prison, they'll bring a stack of trays that are 5, 10 feet high and it'll be to block the officer's windows. They do it on purpose, where you can't do that in prison because they need to be able to see. Even if they're not even looking, they need to pretend like they're looking. But in county jail, supposedly everybody's innocent until proven guilty, so they don't give a fuck." So he keeps talking to me about everything. And, he introduced me to the trustee. And he's like, "I heard about you. You're good people. You're young, blah, blah, blah. I appreciate you doing this." He's like, "Look, this is the plan." So we go in the cell. We start like brainstorming. The trustee is going to cover the window. The dude's going to come in at a certain time. You talk to him, befriend him, isolate him. And once he's comfortable enough, get him in the blind spot by the shower and just go to work on him, And I'll make sure I'm there in case things get out of hand, go too far. And he made a joke like, "Even if you get your ass whooped." And I was like, "Shit, it's possible, man. We're about to have a shower fight." So we laughed about it and we went to this little plan, but I was filled with rage, man, because it's a park I grew up in. This is something that I just couldn't believe. My best friend, I know his kid, like just so the rage I felt was overwhelming, but I've never moved as an emotional dude, even as a youngster. Emotions is what makes you fuck up, makes mistakes. Of course, you have emotional feelings and rage and anger, but you have to channel it. That external and that internal needs to be completely different. Yes, that external is going to make your internal want to just rip a head off. But if you're able to harness that energy from your external into your internal and put it into this chomo's life, it'll change the outcome of everything. But this time, I went too far. So we talked to the trustee. Officer kind of gives us the idea that, "Hey, look, do what you got to do. You have this much time." So dude comes into our unit. I step to him. I'm waiting for the sign where as soon as the trustee covers it, I'm going to have him in a certain area, isolated, and it's going to go down. That's my sign. So I kind of pull him verbally. He's like, "Hey, man, let me holler at you for a sec." And we're kind of by these little chairs by the shower. And he's talking to me and I said, "Hey, are you a sex predator, sex offender?" Something like that. And he looks at me, straight sex offender look, chomo look. And he says, "What's your definition of a chomo or child molester?" He said, "I'm just out here hustling." Dude, something took a part of me like you would see in a movie. Just rage of just, I can't explain it. So I said, I couldn't even say words, And we go to talking. I don't really remember what was said. I just remember that I said, "So you call that a hustle?" Something like that. And he's like, "Yeah, man, I'm no different." And I just fucking blacked out. I grabbed him, threw him in the shower, just started beating him. He's halfway in, halfway out, just pounding his face. All I feel is just rage and anger. And I'm not going to sit here like I'm this big badass, untouchable fighter. But man, when I get this rage, when it comes to children, like it's a different thing. It's not like I see red, guys. No, not that at all. It's this feeling that I cannot be touched. There's no one in this world, on this soil, that's going to get in between me and protecting a child or avenging a child. And I am breaking his face. And then finally I hear, Carlos come out and say, "Yo, Viking, hey, Viking, da-da-da." And he's saying it. And I look, finally like snap. He's like, "Bro, you're taking it too far. Stop." And I just got blood everywhere. I look like Braveheart, blood on one side of my face. And, they finally break it up. Dude's fucked up. Looks like the Elephant Man. So they finally come in. They fucking put me in handcuffs. They put me in confinement. And I find out, not only am I in confinement and all that bullshit, that his family is forcing him to press charges. Yeah. They're saying that they want to sue and he's going to press charges. And they're literally using this chomo as a way for his family to get money. So he's trying to literally get me locked up. They're trying to give me 8 years. This man was only facing 5 on a plea. Imagine that. This dude's trying to exploit and sponsor child, just disgusting material, abuse material. And I'm over here, beating the face in, but I would have never done that if he didn't hurt a child. And they're going to give me more time. I just was, that was when I knew I had to, I guess, use some karmic lubricant in life, because I knew I would work out. I knew I'd get right with God and just do everything possibly, mentally, spiritually, emotionally, to be the best man I could be during this bid. But I would not let one of these demon chomos ever thrive near me, ever. So during that time, I'm sitting there and I'm just thinking, man, this is wild. But luckily, I know I have some good dudes, officers that respect me. And I remember the officer that helping us plan this hit comes up to me and says, Viking, you took it too far. And I remember thinking in my head, I took it too far? You literally told me to do this. I could get away with this. Obviously, I was going to do it anyway, but, how to do this and how it would be easier to hurt him this way. And then you're telling me what did you think I was going to do in there? Not take it too far? And he's like, I know, man, but you didn't have to, kick his head into, like, I didn't have to what? I said, the dude didn't have to put a kiddie bathroom, cameras everywhere. And he said, yeah, I know. So he's pressing charges. It's basically his family. And he doesn't want to press charges, but his family's saying they're not going to get him a lawyer and this whole shit if he doesn't, because they want that money. So about 5-6 months go by and they say, hey, you're getting out of confinement. They drop charges. I guess somebody had talked to his people. I don't know who, but that was it. He said he doesn't know what happened. His family didn't want to do nothing with the case, and we moved forward from there. So on that journey, I took a trip to Palm Beach County Gun Club, the home where I grew up, unfortunately. Now, Gun Club is one of those jails that is just beyond insane. They call it the Gladiator School. East side is the jungle. You go to some of these units, there's no officers. There's 2-man cells. Nobody can see anything. People are getting beat to death in there and tucked in their bed. I mean, it's hard time in there. And they don't go off of like your case, your high profile. You could just have a lot of charges of the same thing, or you got in a fight there and they'll just move you to the worst units. And growing up on the 12th floor, I'm seeing a lot of these officers. And the 12th floor, just so you guys know, is called the direct file floor. So when you're under the age of 18 and you're charged as an adult, they can't put you with the adults until you turn 18. So you have a bunch of 17, 16, 15, 14, 13-year-olds charged with murder, armed robbery, all types of violent crimes. I remember I met a dude in there that was 15 with 4 rapes. You know what I mean? Just unbelievable to be in there with kids with facing life. Some of them are facing 9,000 years, just crazy stories. And that was the most brutal place I was ever at, as far as just constant fighting. Just officers would take advantage of us as young men that needed a fatherly figure, put us in the cells, gamble on us. It wasn't as in-depth. It wasn't as like intriguing and cunning as it is in the adult side, as there's not as much organization. But, you're in there, and I had a fight, I'd say 7-8 times just because I was white. They would say, where you from? I say, Boca Raton. Man, tighten up. Tighten up is the word for fight. I fight, get the shit beat out of me. We go back. They said, where you from? I say, Palm Beach. Man, tighten me up. Finally, when they said it, I just fucking just punched them in the mouth, dude. And I learned this is not how it goes. So a lot of that locks in the socks, a lot of fights, a lot of riots, but it was a lot of young men going through puberty. It was chaos. But those officers would get to know you real well, since, there's only that many juveniles that are charged as adults. So I'd see them, and them too would say, oh, we raised you through this system. And I was like, man, bro, like, look at this shit. Like, the only love and like affection I ever get from adults, fatherly figures, are people who cage me, and it just fucked with me. And I knew I had to manifest and swerve from everything I've learned. But at the same time, I can't ever think that I'm going home. I can't think there's an outside world. So as I'm going in from transport, I'm in there with a dude. I'll never forget him. His name is Christopher Mike White. Man, I still talk to him this day. One of the most solid dudes I ever met in my life. When I was up the road with him after, we both got prison time, we ended up in the same prison. He kind of schooled me on why I should never fuck with gangs, man. And he was one of the toughest, strongest dudes I ever met. But on this day, this was something that him and I will never forget. So he's from a town called Westgate. And as we enter the little Sally Port, the cops bring you there. For me, it was transport. I hear him screaming, I got a gun on me. Please don't bring me in there. Please don't bring me in there. He's saying it over and over. And it's like, they're not believing him. And y'all might be too young to understand this one, but they used to have these big FUBU pants, these big red pants. And basically you could hide shit in there. And it was like two pair of shorts in one. And he had a gun in the little hidden spot. They searched him. They couldn't find him. He's going in there for a DUI now. So he's begging them, please, please, please. And they're saying, man, shut the fuck up. It's because these officers, they don't want to look bad with their peers. And I'm butt ass naked facing the wall because you have to strip down before you go in there, squat, cough. You got to sit in this chair to make sure you have no metal objects in your ass, you know. And this dude is screaming, bro, I'll take the gun charges. Don't bring me in here with it. And they're laughing like, dude, did you search him? They're like, yeah, dude, they're basically mocking it because they're trying to say there's no way this dumbass, like they want to look good. They want to look like they can never miss it. However, if someone's telling you they'll take a gun charge outside of the jail, because once you bring it in, you're going to get an enhancement up to 8 to 18 years, depending on how much and what it is and what you use it for. And they keep laughing. They keep playing. And next thing you know, we're all getting kind of roughed house in there. And there's about 4 of us in this little like unit where we're all getting strip searched. And you hear the gun falls out because he was playing with it, trying to show it before he went in there, but he had handcuffs on. And it was like a moment in time stopped. And they said, everybody down. And they grabbed us all. They took us on the ground, beat the shit out of us, put us all in handcuffs. And I remember being so mad, like, and I was like, in the mindset as a 22-year-old saying, fuck this, man. This is the world I'm in now. I'm not going to be a victim. I'm not going to let these dudes fucking tell me what is and what's not. You know, that's the mindset I had, that this is home for me. And I started screaming. I said, nah, that motherfucker told you guys that. So they get mad. They kick me in the face. They beat the shit out of him. And, you know, next thing I know, they're dragging me into the non-responsive cell. So the non-responsive cell is when you're going through intake after you've been strip searched and all that, is a single man cell and the toilets are broken. It's real fucked up. You to really get any help, it takes 12, 15 hours to get processed. And right across, he's there. I'm all fucked up, bleeding and shit. And I'm like, hey, man, at least we got our own cell. Mike said, yeah, I guess, bro. He said, but man, I'm facing 8 years now, bro, on top of, you know, he had a DUI. And I was like, that's fucked up, bro. I said, I'll be a witness if you need, bro. I know you said it. He said, don't worry about it. So I go to pick up the phone and it goes, meh, 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 basically not working. I'm facing 50 fucking years, man. And you guys are telling me it's not working. I immediately look over. I see Mike at the door. You know, well, I call him Mike. His name's Chris White. I say, Mike, what's up, bro? And he goes, well, the way I call him Mike is, I used to call him, what's up, Chris? And he say, listen, man, just call me Hardhead or call me Mike. And I said, all right, White. And he laughed, but he said, hey, your phone ain't working? I said, mine's not. He's like, we're bucking. So bucking's a term in Florida jails and stuff where we're kicking the door, flooding the cells and ready just to get a cell extraction, fight the officers. Now, I said, you know what? You're right, man. Fuck this shit. Because I'm just so tired of it. I sat in the other jail for doing a hit on a chomo and ended up being told by the officers who helped me that I took it too far. It's like, yeah, I take responsibility. I knew the consequences I was getting into, but if an officer helps you, you know, don't act like you're innocent in all this. Like, oh, you did this wrong. No, you shouldn't be doing shit if you can't handle the pressure as well. So I was a little angry about that. So I end up going there and whatever. So I'm kicking the door and he's kicking the door and we're just snapping. I said, my phone's not working. They say, listen, we don't give a fuck, man. He goes, tell us what happened in that cell. Talking about the strip search. I go, I don't fucking know. All I know is I heard him screaming about a gun and then a gun fell out. They go, shut the fuck up, dude. They like really wanted to bam him, like make it look like he was a liar so they wouldn't look bad. They would rather play with his life and take away a decade of his freedom than just say we made a bad mistake, but we fixed it and it'll never happen again, right? It's funny how in DCF and all these other programs, when kids get hurt, it'll happen over and over and over. The mislook all these reports. But then when the kid gets hurt, they'll say, all right, we're going to change policy. And they keep their program going. So anyway, he's going crazy. He's headbutting the door. So first they go to his cell and they say, inmate. They got the camera, they got the corporal and everything like this, old 1995 digital camera. And they say, are you willing to comply? He goes, fuck no. And he goes, the first one in here, I'm going to hit with a right hook. And they're like, all right, we're going to come in. They got the whole Doom Squad with them. All these dudes dressed in black, like a bunch of COs or corrections officers, but they're really the sheriffs in the jail, but they're still working corrections. And they open the cell door and he like stands at the top of his bunk kind of area and he punches downward with his right. And the corporal runs in there and he clips the corporal right in the face. The corporal drops. But within 3 seconds, they slammed him, beat him. He was damn near unconscious. I said, damn, bro. So they're finally done with him. They drag him out and they put him in this thing called the black chair. The black chair is basically a prison straitjacket. It has wheels on it and everything. It has a bunch of seatbelts on it, basically, and you sit in it, and it's real hard, like almost metal and plastic put together. And the harder you move, say you move to your left, it tightens it up on the right. So the more you move, it just tightens it until you're literally glued to the seat, and they can wheel you around and just do whatever they want with you. It's fucked up. So they look over after that, beating the shit out of him, pepper spraying. They come to my cell, and they go, "Come on now, Viking, you ready?" And I'm not going to lie to y'all. I say, look, I'm not just going to let this shit happen. I'm not just going to let y'all abuse me. But at the same time, I'm not going to go to war with y'all. So I'm just letting y'all know I will testify on his behalf about that gun. That's all I care about. Y'all fucked him over, man, with that. And they go, all right, man, come in. They come in there and they beat the shit out of me, man. And I didn't even want to go through what Mike just went through, I didn't want to go through what Hardhead went through because it was like, damn, man, he just took a whooping I've never seen that level of. And they come in there, they're kicking my head in, beating me up, pepper spraying me, dogging me out. Then they put me in the chair, the black chair I told y'all about, and they're spraying me with pepper spray, laughing. Finally, about 20 hours later or so, and one bologna sandwich, I go to where they go to get classified. I remember I'm passed out. That shit was so intense, plus going from one county to the other, and I'm just sleeping. All of a sudden, I wake up, and I thought I would never see Chris, Mike, White, Hardhead ever again. And I feel a punch on my shoulder when I'm sleeping, like a dead arm, man. I'm like, what the fuck? I look up. He's like, what's up, bro? How are you? I said, what's up, White? How are you, bro? He goes, don't call me that. It's Hardhead or Mike. And I said, all right, bro. So we start talking and we're laughing. He's like, yeah, man, that was Corporal Softjaw. You saw that, bro. Like, no, nothing fazed him. I'm all bruised up. He don't have a mark on him. So he starts telling me about how it is over here. And I told him I was in the 12th floor. He's like, oh, yeah, I grew up there, too. State raised. He just finished doing 10 years for shooting a guy with a shotgun that was trying to basically not rape, but was being very sexual with his older sister. And she was telling him to stop it. He went right up to the guy on the beach and shot him with a shotgun. Just got out for 10 years. Now he's back facing 8 years. So he's all in, though. You could tell he let all that shit go. He even saw the corporal that he punched. Said, what's up, Corporal Softjaw? He was just so institutionalized. So in this unit, you can like get on the phone a little bit, but within a couple of days, they're sending to your main pod. And he goes, dude, as long as you don't go to the east side, the jungle, that's where they always send me, you'll be all right, man. I said, all right. So they're calling everybody. Finally, they call him. He goes to the south side. He's like, finally, man, that's easy time. I get called. They say, Viking, east side, east 4B. I said, fuck. He goes, hey, man, good luck, bro. That's the hard spot. That's the jungle, bro. You're going to learn a lot about yourself, bro. Don't ever let a motherfucker punk you out and never be a victim. You hear me? I said, all right, bro, I'll see you. So they pack it up. It's me and this other white dude. We're heading up there. And in my mind, I know I can handle myself and I know the politics of these wild dorms, except I've never been in the adult prison yet, adult jails, but going through what I went through in the juvenile system, I'm pretty sure I can handle a couple scuffles. I doubt they got knives and shit like that over here. Boy, was I wrong. So I'm walking up the stairs and I got another white dude with me. And he's like all skin-headed out type of dude. Not my cup of tea, but I don't give a fuck what you do, man. Everyone's got their own thing in prison. So as we're going up, he's asking the officers all these questions. He's like, hey, man, what's up with there? How many white dudes in there? Do you guys He's asking like real fishy questions. Did you guys change how you watch? And he's like, man, well, what are you saying? Are you going or not? He's like, yeah. So we keep going up. We get right to the window. And you could look in and see it's a madhouse immediately. There's no officers that can even see in there. their control station is like 3 floors down. There's 2-man cells that go farther than the eye can see because of the blind spots in the corners. So as we get to the door, they say, all right, they read me my name. They read him his name. He says, I'm not going in. So I was young and very naive. In my mind, I said, what a punk, man. Who does that, bro? You know, all that shit you got tattooed on you, warrior, this, that, Aryan warrior, and you won't go in there? But in my mind, I should have said, maybe he knows something I don't know, you know? But whatever. I thought maybe it was some gang politics, but I would shortly find out that he just wasn't built for what was going to happen. And you know what? I went through it and I wasn't built for it, but it made me a stronger man going through it. Now it did. So I get in there after he checks in, and there was 2 officers with us, and one of them said, all right, man, drop him in the cell. I'm going to take the other one to protective custody. So I go in there, and I'm waiting for them to tell me, like, you're assigned this bunk, this cell, and they go, hey, find a room. And they walk out. So I walk in, and immediately dudes are, hey, what's up, man? Hey, you got that? Like, they're all trying to see where I'm at. Just real. I seen a dude I was in juvenile prison with, and you know, he was saying like, hey man, come here, let me talk to you. Hey, how much money did you have when you got arrested? Like, they're all trying to play me, but I just want to find where I'm selling up. So I walk by the first window. He goes, you ain't selling in here, white boy. I said, damn. I come down to the next cell. He said, nah, cracker, not in here. I come down here. The other dude goes, man, you ain't coming in here. So I already know in my head I'm going to be in a fight. So I get to like the 4th or 5th cell, and it's these cool Southsider dudes, man. They're all in there. And the Southsider said, man, come on, bro. You good, dude. I come in the cell, the Mexican dudes, Southsiders, they're called, and they were cool as fuck. Now, he talks to me, says, listen, this isn't like a regular area in the jail. These dudes are stealing, robbing, extorting, beating, they're fighting. I mean, it is crazy in here. He goes, the razor blades are over there, the knives are over here. All those people you saw in here some are Latin Kings, Southside. We all stick together in here. Now, look, you could do your own thing. Just 3 rules. Don't let nobody in this cell unless I'm okay with them. And do not ever, ever let somebody punk you out, rob you. Don't give nobody nothing because you cannot live in here anymore. I said, all right, cool. So we're in there and time's going by. And you know, let me call my mom and see if I can get a bond. And since I've been in here for like 3-4 days, and I started getting a little program hitting push-ups, but it's so wild in here. You're seeing dudes get the shit beat out of them every day. The officers will come in there and just look around for 2 seconds in the day room, say, everybody here? Okay, bye. You know, it's like, what the fuck? And I see a white dude who thought he was like a Crip or something like that. They were like, oh, you're a Crip, because this isn't prison where you can become in an organization through stabbings and years of putting work in. This is something where somebody off the street says he's banging an organization. So the real Crip organization played him, bro. They extorted him, took his money, and they literally beat the shit out of him. Yeah, he shit his pants, put him in a coma. They put him in the bed, and they covered him. And they didn't find him for almost a day or 2, bro. I mean, I couldn't believe it. So I had to compartmentalize in my head that I will never be a victim, you know? And, you know, my roommate, he said, yeah, bro, you got to be a warrior in here. Excuse my bad impressions, but it's true. That's how he talked. So I'm like, damn, man, I want to get the fuck out of here. I'm not even going to lie. I'm not trying to go through that, man. So dudes are getting beat to death in there. It's bad. And they just hit the window, drag a body out there, hit the button on the window, and they drag the body out there, or they pound on the window, and they'll say, get one, he needs to go to medical. It's like, damn, this is real gladiator school. So I'm on the phone with my mom, and I say, listen, Mom. She said, how are you? I said, look, you know, can I bond out? What do you think? She's like, baby, I'm on the phone with her, you know, and there's a guy about to say something. She goes, listen, baby, I can't bond you out. You've been in and out the system only 2 times, but still, I got out. I went in at 16, got out at 19. Now I'm facing a life sentence at 22. And she's like, you need to learn your lesson, baby. She's like, maybe I'll help you with a lawyer or something. And while I'm on the phone, it's like a real deep conversation. I know now I'm committed. A dude says, hey, Billy Cracker, let me get a 3-way. And it was like, what? Billy Cracker. So Billy Cracker, Cracker isn't so much of an insult to white dudes as in Florida. Sometimes it's slang, but they also do call the police crackers. So I didn't understand that. I said, Mom. At first I said, Mom, let me call you back. I hang up the phone. I said, what's up? Because Billy, you're basically saying that I'm just some average white boy. You're being racist, basically, what you're saying. Like, you're saying the most, like, whitest name, and you're saying I'm Billy Cracker. And I was like, here's my time now. Here's my time to show them that they're playing with the wrong one. And I think I'm going to get a one-on-one. So I say, what's up? I say, I'm on the phone with my mom. You going to disrespect me like that? I don't, a three-way is basically he wanted my mom to get on her phone or cell phone or whatever and call somebody for him, do him a favor. You don't know me. You've never met me. That's my mom's money. And the fact that you didn't try to introduce yourself first or even try to play up under me nicely just shows you have no respect for me. And this is a test. So I say, what's up? And he goes, what's up? In Florida, that means we're going to catch the wall, the paint, whatever it is. Those are nicknames for where we're going to fight. They call, like, the paint is usually the cell or a blind spot because it gets covered in blood, and it's the paint. The grid is where you fight. So many different things. But when you tell somebody, what's up, get there, that means it's 100% fight. There's nothing more to talk about. So I go over there, and like everybody falls like, yo, that white boy's crazy. But in my mind, win, lose, or draw, I know it's going to be okay because it's just an ass whooping or I win. But either way, they're going to know what's up. And then my celly will see, I'm not on that bullshit. I'll get cool with them Serenos and they'll see I got heart. I'm not trying to click up or nothing. That's their business. But at least they'll know they're living with a warrior, because you got two choices in prison, a warrior or a victim. I know that sounds very like, well, you're not in the military, but you don't have to be a warrior just because you go and do something honorable. You got plenty of dictators in other countries we went to war with and vice versa that weren't honorable, but they thought they were for whatever their cause was. Anyway, so I remember he's in the cell. I follow him in there and he's tying his shoes. They were Jordans. And he goes, hey, don't hit me while I'm tying my shoes. I said, man, I'm trying to just get this out the way. Let's run it. So we put our hands up, and I'll tell you this, from really not being out there fighting, working out. And, when I was out in the streets, I was drinking a lot. I was slow. I got real slow. And I threw the punch. And usually I'm quick, snappy. I grew up kickboxing and wrestling. And it was like, yeah, it was thrown, but he like weaved it real quick. And he throws one back at me. And I said, oh, shit. So then I wind up and I hit him with an overhand right. Usually that's my punch. And he looks at me and says, oh, you fucked up, Cracker, right? I said, damn. So he's throwing like 4, I'm throwing 2, but I'm landing and it's going back and forth, back and forth. So the only thing I can hope for is that he gasses out. But either way, I'm going to stand my ground, throw these hands. And at the end of the day, anybody that fucks with me knows that this is what we're going to have to do. And I only get better. I only get stronger, only get more confidence. So I went in the cell. I feel like a metal or something very sharp hit me in the back of the head. It wasn't a fist. And I don't get knocked out, but my legs are kind of like noodles. I can't really move them and I'm seeing stars. And he hit me with something, a lock in the sock, but it felt like it was like a rock. I don't know, something very hard hit me in the back of the head on the soft part. So I immediately kind of just am frozen, not because I'm scared, but because my body is not reacting to what my mind wants it to do. And then they jump on me. They start 3 or 4 of them come in the cell and just start kicking me, punching me, elbowing me, hitting me with shit. And I'm like, damn, man, this is it. So in the midst of it all, I grab one dude kind of by the head. And you can have hair like dreads and stuff because you're in county. In prison, they'll shave all your shit. And I remember falling and grabbing him as I fell. I'm stuck between the toilet. He's on top of me and like the side wall before the cell door. And I remember just biting him and poking his eye and putting my finger in his ear, just doing everything to just something to get the fuck out of there. And all of a sudden, I feel a football kick coming my way. I put my left hand up to kind of like block it, like a Philly shell style, but not as smooth. And he kicks it. My thumb goes, literally fractures and breaks. It's literally down by my wrist. So I'm bleeding all over my eye. And all I could think about was that song, I got blood in my eye, dog, and I don't care. You know what I mean? Or whatever that 50 Cent song is. I got blood in my eye, take my life away. Anyway, so I'm bleeding out my eye. And all of a sudden I hear a dude say, put his head in the toilet. Let's kill this white boy. So they were going to put it's called flushing your soul down the toilet. And they do it a lot to people that they don't like. It happens to all different types of people. Gang members, extortionists, booty bandits, chomos, people that they just don't like because I refuse to give up. They're like, give up, Cracker, give up. And I said, nah, I'm going to die here. But then once they said that, it was a different type of death, I'm thinking I'm going to die in here as we're going to fight until someone breaks it up. No. They're literally going to try to put my head in the toilet and kick it until I die or drown or unconscious in a shitty toilet. So I don't know if it was like that adrenaline that mothers get when they say the kid's under a car or whatever, or what the situation like that. But, I'm bleeding. I got a dislocated thumb, broken orbital bone, broken nose. I'm fucked up, ribs, all that. But I just get this fucking burst of energy. I go, rah, because I was not going out like that. And I stand up, and I remember dudes are still punching me, and I'm punching my way out. I get into the hallway, and I'm like squared up, and dudes are coming at me, and I'm just putting my head down, throwing punches. I'm bleeding everywhere. All of a sudden, the lights flick, and they say, count time, count time. So it's like they have this whole shit planned. Immediately, dude starts mopping the floor, like he was just waiting, cleaning it all up. I go in my cell. I could barely, I'm so out of it. And my cellmate, the Southsider, talks to me. He's like, "Hey, white boy, you're a warrior. Hey, you did that, bro. Hey, you got nothing but love from the Southsiders for real." Goes, "Let me help you out here." So count time is very weak there, but still, you don't ever want to be that dude that gets caught up from injuries because it gives you a bad name. So he's trying to sew my eye up with a sock string and a needle. I don't know how sanitary that was. He's like, "This ain't working." Then he looks at my thumb. He tries to push it up. He's like, "Oh shit, just pretend you're sleeping." And I'm sleeping with a towel around my head, just leaking everywhere. Probably go blind if it took longer. But they come in there and they say, "All right, y'all good? Y'all here? All right, bye." I'm like, damn. So I get there. He's like, "You don't got to fight." I said, "No, fuck that." So I get out. I come to the cell, right to the door, and he's kind of walking there, and he tries to tell me, "Man, hey, it went too far. Let's call it a day." He probably calmed down, was like, "Oh, we're going to end up really killing him." And I said, "Oh, no, fuck that. I don't give a fuck. We're going to run it back. Let's do a one-on-one." And he's like, "Man, it's too late for all that." And he's like, just say you're straight. Say you're straight. That's a term for I don't want to fight anymore. And I was just like, "Man, let's go." And they're looking at me like, "Yo, this dude is insane. He's got an eye that looks like he was in a car accident, a nose that's been bleeding, a thumb that's hanging off like a fucking on the side of his wrist like a disformity." And here I go. And we square up a little bit, and his friends come behind him, and especially the one that I was poking his eye. He's right there, but I can't see shit. Fighters, the fights get stopped in the UFC when too much blood is coming into the eye because you go blind that way. So I can't see out my left eye. I can't really do anything. My ribs, I'm all fucked up. But I'm just squaring up because I refuse to be a victim, man. This is something that I will never let happen. And as we get closer and closer, I could see kind of my peripheral, the Southsiders, my cellmates are there, and the black dudes I'm fighting with, they back up. And they're like, "Man, y'all some motherfucking punks," talking to the Mexican dudes. They got blades in their hands. One dude's facing a death penalty case. And they're like, "Nah, man, give him the one-on-one. Fuck that. Dude's a warrior. Come on now. This white boy can get a fight anytime he wants, but y'all ain't going to jump him like that." They start saying shit in Spanish. Like, "Nah, man, fuck that. Y'all going to get yours." So obviously the first thing was like, man, where were y'all at from the beginning, right? But I knew they had to make sure I wasn't just this weak motherfucker that would just take a beating and then ask for help. So they saw I had heart. I get in the cell, and they say to me, "Hey, man, you're a warrior, white boy, for real. Nothing but respect. You handled that." I was like, "For real, thank you, man." They're like, "Yeah, no matter what, your family here, And I respect them Southsiders, man. I don't know their business, but I respect them. So days go by, and my thumb is turning black from gangrene. The stitches that we're making aren't working, and I could barely eat. My whole face is fucked up. Ribs are fucked up. Jaw is fucked up. Back of my head is fucked up. And finally, he says to me, "Hey, man, you got to go to medical." I said, "Nah, fuck that," because a lot of dudes will go to medical as a form of checking in to tell the police, "Hey, I got beat up. These people did it. Please help me, help me." I didn't ever want that on my record because I felt, and that's how crazy it is, literally going insane to remain insane, that I had to save face no matter what. Your reputation is everything. Die for it type of thing. So finally he convinces me, says, "Listen, you fought 3-4 dudes. You went back for more. Your eye is bleeding. Your chin is broken. Your eye is broken. Your thumb is turning black. What are you going to do when you go to prison and you don't have a thumb and eye?" He's like, "Bro, there's nothing wrong with it. Just don't tell them who did it and keep it moving." So I said, "All right." So I hit the button and say, "Hey, I need to go to medical. I fell in the shower." So they come. I said, "Yeah, I was detoxing." They look at me and said, "What the fuck?" they put me in the black chair, like I told you about earlier. They start pepper spraying me in my eye, my face, all my wounds, just start beating my ass. Tell us who did it. Da-da-da. You didn't fucking withdrawal or overdose, none of that shit. And I was just like, nah, I fell. Finally, after like 20 minutes, the corporal who Mike White hit comes over there and says, get the fuck off him. I said, damn, man, life is a trip. And he's like, man, what the fuck y'all doing, man? So the corporal was actually cool, though. He's like, oh, how's your buddy doing? I said, he's all right. He goes, listen, it's strictly business, but it's one thing if y'all are kicking doors and acting crazy. It's another thing if my officers are being bullies and brutal, you know? I'm thinking in my head, like, I don't give a fuck, man. I just been beaten in the cell, been beaten when I first got here. Then I get beaten and ask y'all for help and I'm getting sprayed. They take me to outside medical, though. He was cool. He got me to go to Wellington General, get my thumb put back in place, get real stitches. I get put in the medical wing. While I'm in there, one of the inmates that were involved in the shit comes in there a couple weeks later. I'm on the shitter. And I learned in prison, jail, you got to shit with one leg in, one leg out, so you don't get caught slipping. Dude punches me while I'm on the shitter. I'm still barely healed. And we start having a fight on that dirty bathroom shower floor. And, you know, I went through a little bit here and there, but for the most part, I made it to court. And it was quite a journey. But I told myself from that moment on, I'll never be a victim again. I don't give a fuck about this honor, duty, respect in there. It's about survival, intelligence, and to always make the best choice on the chessboard. So I go to court and I talk to my lawyer, and my lawyer says, yeah, man, they're offering you like 18 years, but I think I can get it down to 14. And I said, what the fuck? I said, no. Like, how about we try to go a little bit lower than that? He goes, absolutely not. So I go back and forth, you know, and finally I realized that it's over with, man. I need to make a move here and start my life. I can't hang on any longer. So if it's 14 years, 10 years, whatever it is, I need to face my consequences. So I go back to court and I say, well, I want to do an open plea, which means fuck what the prosecutor says, fuck what anybody else says, what I score out to. I'm telling the judge, listen, we can't come to an agreement. I want you to sentence me. And they say, look, if you do that, he can give you anything from time served to a life sentence, 45 years. And I said, all right, it's cool. So we come back and we do it. It's just my dad and I, rest his soul. We're in the courtroom and I sit down and the judge says, this comes to me. You want to do an open plea? I said, yes, sir. He does all the things like, are you under any substances? The whole thing. I said, no, sir. He goes, okay. And he asks the state prosecutor what he thinks. He says, well, if he's going to do an open plea, we want to give him 40 years. I had no emotion, you know, nothing. Like my dad said something like cocksucker, but I didn't even flinch because I knew that I could not do anything but be there in that moment. And I did not want this moment, if it was my last, to be with my father on the free world or anything, to be remembered with weakness. I didn't want to leave him with that. So they talk. My judge is talking to my lawyer who is not doing good at all. I realize this is going south quick. I say, sir, can I speak on my behalf? He goes, yeah. And he said, are you sure? I said, yeah. I said, listen, Your Honor. He goes, before you talk, just know right now, I could sentence you to probation, time served, 40 years. Even if I wanted to, I could give you a life sentence if I run everything not concurrent. You know what I mean? And I say, yes, sir, I know. He goes, all right, have at it. You know, and I say, sir, I'm not on here to say I don't want to go to prison or give me leeway. I know I have to go to prison. I'm not going to sit here and say that I did a mistake. They're all decisions. I said, all I'm going to say is this. I want to change my life, become bitter, better, stronger, and not bitter, and be more angry. I said, I want to let all that go. But at the same time, I know I have to do a sentence. I said, all I ask, I'm 22, is that I get out before I'm 35. And he says, is that it? I said, yes, sir. You know, my dad's older, my mom's older. I want to show them the man that I know I am and the man that he always knew I was. So he sits there, asks the prosecutor again. They say, the lowest I'll ever recommend is 30 years. I'm like, damn, all right. I said, this is it. So I'm expecting to get about, you know, that right now I could give you everything, life, whatever. You understand? Yes, sir. Okay. He looks around and he says, I sentence you. And I'm like, damn, like thinking like, what's going on? And he's still being quiet. 84 months in the Department of Corrections with time served that you have in the county jail. I said, okay. I do the math. That's 7 years. I could do that. I'm 22, 23. So for me, that still feels like it's forever. I'll be an old man, when I get out. Little did I know, right? However, it was just like, wow, that was an intense moment. Then I look at my lawyer, I said, hey, please get me that time served from the other county jail I was in, where I beat up the chomo. And I didn't say that to him. I just said where I was in Broward. And he goes, okay. And he asked so weak. He says, can we get the time served from the county jail? And then the judge is like, absolutely not. That was for a whole different case. It does not go towards this case. All right. And my dad goes, cocksucker. And I said, sir, can I give my dad a hug? And they let my dad come up. I said, I love you. I got this. I'm going to come out a stronger, better man. And nothing can break me. You know that, right? You raised me well. Hug me. I remember they took me back to the jail. They put me in the non-responsive unit. And yeah, it was hard to digest. But then I said, I felt so free. It's over. I can finally become the man that I always knew I was. And it was like almost the craziest, just unreal feeling that you can ever imagine. And through all that wildness, the interpretation is to always concentrate your forces. Basically, to understand focusing your energy on the most important areas and not spreading yourself too thin. During hard times, it's crucial to identify your core strengths and concentrate on areas where you make the biggest impact. Always remember, adversity builds character. The law advises focusing your energy on the most important areas and not spreading yourself too thin. During hard times, it's crucial to identify your core strengths and concentrate on areas where you can make the biggest impact. Stay out, stay free, us.